at this! She was wearing it when she spoke her first words. So cool!
These people need help. So, did you ever want to see an episode where Rainbow Dash's parents are overbearing and annoying, with Scootaloo encouraging them to be overbearing and annoying, and questionable implications on how Dash's parents may love her way too much? Well, I'm pretty sure that Parental Glideance is an episode meant for you. As for myself, I think it could have handled its concept better and much more subtly. Scootaloo heads up to Cloudsdale in search of something that can help her with her school report on Rainbow Dash. That something turns out to be her parents, Bo Hothoof and Windy Whistles. After a unnatural tour through the house, Scootaloo reveals to them that she's become a Wonderbolt, which they apparently never knew about. The three travel to the Wonderbolt Academy to cheer her on and accompany her on her tour across town. But Dash has finally had enough and tells off her parents, leaving them and Scootaloo emotionally disappointed. Now Rainbow Dash has to make up for losing her temper by regaining Scootaloo's loyalty and making her parents feel accepted by her. I don't want to be too hard on this episode because at first I was fairly interested in what they were going for, even if there were plenty of cringeworthy moments. I'm not even gonna touch the tour around the house and the stash in Rainbow Dash's room, those things pretty much speak for themselves. But I do have to give credit to the first third of the episode for presenting itself with a good setup. It's paced very well, putting enough detail into each delicate thing that Dash's parents show Scootaloo, which fits with how the scene reflects onto her. Scootaloo's fangasms were excessively exaggerated to the point of annoyance, but they at least made a bit of sense. She was learning more about her idol in a way that she never has before and wasn't even expecting. The information she was getting from her parents was presented to her in a way that was tempting and on her level, which understandably encouraged her. Plus, she was being given material for her school report, which only added to her excitement of getting a chance to tell her friends and teacher about everything about her idol that inspires her. So strangely enough, despite the highly questionable implications, I kind of liked the episode's first act, but sadly, it quickly goes downhill from there. And as you probably already guessed, it has everything to do with Bo and Windy. It's pretty clear that they're very supportive of their daughter, but there is such a thing as being too obsessed with her. It's funny at first, but it quickly gets old. And when the majority of the episode consists of something this one note, it's only a matter of time before it overstays its welcome. At best, it's very stale and repetitive, and at worst, it's potentially harmful parenting. By always fawning over Rainbow Dash for every insignificant thing she does, it could cause her to create unrealistic expectations for herself, which would heavily discord her spirit if she doesn't meet with her goals. And even if Dash knows better than to set unrealistic expectations onto herself, this overbearing support puts unwanted pressure on her, and it heavily distracts her to the point that she just loses focus. But does that make Rainbow Dash in the right? Well, not really, because she makes her own mistakes in the story too. And it's implied that she's been making a huge one for years. In a way, she's in the right to be aggravated with her parents, but when it happens, it just feels way too mean-spirited. They hold on to how heavily it hurts them, and those specific choice of words just twist the knife even harder. And when you really think about it, there's the unfortunate implication that Dash, for who knows how long, has had a very low opinion on her parents. The way she says the line, "You've invited a bunch of crazy into my life," or knowing that she's been hiding a bunch of stuff that's happened in her life since socializing in Ponyville, gives me the vibe that she cut them out of her life entirely. Isn't that going too far? It's not like they were abusive or anything, they were just being overly supportive. Something that could have easily been resolved if Dash just had a calm talk with them about it. It would have been easy enough to do, and yet she never did it in all the years that she's lived with or known them. I mean, if she starts to regret yelling at her parents that quickly immediately after seeing a picture of her family in Scootaloo's report book, it was most likely something she always knew about but didn't even care for. And in hindsight, it's just impossible for me to believe that Dash's parents never found out about their daughter becoming a Wonderbolt, let alone all of the other crazy adventures she's been a part of. She's acted on the authority of Equestria's ruler, and she helped save Equestria on numerous occasions. Hell, a certain incident involved her blowing up a factory in Cloudsdale because she didn't want her pet turtle to leave her. Of all the crazy incidents that have occurred, I just can't accept that neither Bo or Windy ever heard of at least one of these things. It just feels like a fabricated assumption that was made up in order for this episode's plot to even work. So, was there anything to like about this episode? Well, there were noticeable elements that I did enjoy. I appreciate the episode's references and continuity shoutouts most of all. Some background references like Sky Stinger and Vapor Trail as potential Wonderbolts shows that since their last appearance, they've made enough progress to still remain at the Academy. And I really like the photos that Scootaloo took of previous episode events. It shows that this report is made from more than just being from the perspective of a huge Dashi fan. These pictures showcase some of Dash's greatest struggles and personal triumphs, presenting how all of these experiences have made her into the accomplished Pegasus she is today. And the episode's desire to remind us of such things tells us that it cares for the development that Dash has made as a character. Although I will admit it's very, very hard to believe that Scootaloo was there at every single crucial moment specifically to take a picture of it. The Wind Rider case was particularly a very tight and closed situation, so there's no way she could have been there immediately as Dash was being accused of that whole fiasco. But aside from that, I also appreciate the heart-to-heart that Rainbow Dash and Scootaloo had, as it allows the two to open up to each other while coming from a place of vulnerability. For a very long time, the two have been like very close sisters to each other. And in that whole time, Rainbow Dash was always very supportive of her and giving her a sense of guidance. It's actually pretty poetic seeing Scootaloo returning that sense of guidance to her older sister figure. And it deeply shows how Scootaloo has taken her support from Dash to heart. We even get some insight on Scootaloo's background as she explains her feelings about Dash's parents that implies that maybe she was an orphan the whole time. But it's done subtly enough that we can't necessarily confirm this. I mean, she claims that she never had supportive parents, but we're never shown anything to suggest that her actual parents are dead. And Flight to the Finish confirmed that she's at least living somewhere and not homeless. So what is the connection between Scootaloo's admiration for Dash's parents while claiming that she doesn't have any herself? It's some reasonable food for thought, and there's even some potential for a story behind it. As for the moral, it ends up feeling confused. It's telling us that we should appreciate our parents and the support that they give us, which isn't a bad lesson. But we're expected to connect that lesson to Dash's parents, who have been shown to be overly obsessive, obliviously putting pressure on their daughter, and how Dash was in the right to be annoyed by them. There was never a moment where the support was shown to be helpful in any way, and the two came across as so reckless that it ended up making Dash feel alienated from them. I suppose it was important for Dash to learn this lesson considering the position she placed herself in, but the story still feels too one-sided by not thinking of a way that Dash could have tried to be reasonable with them when explaining why their support was potentially harmful. So was parental guidance good or bad? Well, in all honesty, it's hard to tell. This episode feels really half and half with the story and pacing along with the characterization and message. There was stuff that I liked about it, but they do very little to justify the episode's flaws. And the second act especially suffers from feeling repetitive and annoying. Would I watch it again? Probably not, but I never felt like it was a bad idea to give the episode a chance. I say to see it for what it's worth and decide for yourself. MisAnthro Pony, over and out.